Hi everyone, welcome to the visual guide for Lost Ark Legion Raid. This time we will be tackling the Gate 3 of the Mayhem Legion Raid Commander, Kakul-Saydon. This guide will not go through every single random pattern as there are too many of them and too many variables to cover. However, this guide will focus on the major mechanics and important specifics of the encounter. My name is Kanima and I'll be your raid guide. Just like Gate 1 and Gate 2 of the Mayhem Legion Raid, the recommended item level is 1475 and the main reward will be the Trumpet, which can be used to upgrade your gear set effect from level 1 to level 2. And with that, let's get into the raid itself. Kakul-Saydon Gate 3 is a Legion raid that can be tackled with 4 party members. Specifically in Gate 3 of the Mayhem Legion raid, you will be encountering both Kakul and Saydon at the same time. The main mechanic of this fight will be the side-scrolling minigame that is normally known as Mario. Before we start into the mechanics, we need to discuss the preparation for this particular gate. The battle items that is recommended is Potions, Sacred Charm, Stagger Grenade, Dark Grenade, and Timestop. The main mechanic, as said earlier, is the Mario minigame, and each player will need to execute this mechanic properly. Assign each player into their Mario order from 1 to 4. For context, Mario 1 and 2, which happens earlier on the phase, is easier compared to Mario 3 and 4, so it is recommended to assign Mario 3 and 4 into a more consistent player. The encounter will begin with Kakul-Saydon spawning at 180 health bar. This will be a burn phase where the boss is doing their standard patterns without major mechanics. The patterns that the boss does is exactly the same as Gate 1 of the raid with some upgraded patterns. One thing to note is the boss will frequently use a pattern that has a large area and inflict fear. Since this can happen at any time and especially on major mechanic, it is important to dispel this abnormal status as soon as possible. Use your dispel skills or Sacred Charm. Another thing to note is the Mayhem gauge that is still in play. Getting hit by patterns will increase this gauge, and at 50% or above, you will start firing lasers that can hit your teammates, dealing damage and increasing their Mayhem gauge as well. At 100% gauge, you will turn into a clown for 13 seconds and you will give an armor stack to the boss, reducing damage taken by the boss. Unlike Gate 1 and Gate 2 though, gauge management is extremely important in Gate 3. Because major mechanics, specifically Mario, will require you to turn into a clown or a raid wipe will happen. Due to this and based on your Mario assignment, you will need to balance your Mayhem gauge so you can turn into clown when necessary. Periodically, the boss will also summon 2 circus balls that will give you Mayhem gauge if you stay in close to it. Use this to gain some Mayhem gauge before killing them as they become an area denial and explode, increasing everyone's Mayhem gauge if left behind for too long. A major mechanic called Reversal can also occur at any time. This mechanic puts a curse on either some or all of the party members, and after this curse expires, your health and missing health will be reversed. You may use the flames at the edge of the arena to lower your health up until you're comfortable. Be careful with lowering your health too much because the boss patterns or the burn debuff can still kill you. At 150 health bar, the boss will execute the first Mario minigame by summoning a portal at the center of the arena. At this point of time, player that is assigned for Mario 1 should have approximately 50% Mayhem gauge. A doll that breathes fire and increases your Mayhem gauge will also spawn, and you can use this to turn yourself into a clown. This doll has a damage reduction buff, but it is still killable, so be careful. After a certain amount of time, the portal will open, dealing massive damage to any player in the portal area except for one player that has turned into a clown. The Mario person should be a clown at this point. Throw grenade by using Q into the doll to remove its damage reduction buff, then move into the portal. This will teleport the first Mario player into the side-scrolling minigame. Use arrow keys to move, Q to use hammer attack, and W to jump. A curse with specific color, either red, blue, or yellow, will appear on one of the 3 players outside. After a certain amount of time, this player will die. This color will determine what kind of ball should the Mario player kill. Kill 3 of these colored balls to remove the curse. avoid bouncing balls and falling into pits, kill the mobs, and exit the minigame. On the other side, 3 players will still be fighting the boss, and after a certain amount of time, the Iron Maiden pattern will happen. All 3 players will be teleported to the right side, and the boss will teleport to the left side. 1 player will be trapped inside an Iron Maiden, and a chainsaw will slowly move to kill the player trapped in the Iron Maiden. The other 2 players will need to avoid chainsaws and traverse to the left, then stagger the boss. Getting hit by this chainsaw will instantly kill you. After the Mario player exits the minigame and the outside player finishes this pattern, the first Mario mechanic is finished and the encounter will resume. At 125 health bar, the boss will execute the second Mario minigame by summoning the second portal. This is exactly the same as the first Mario, and the second Mario player should be prepared with approximately 50% Mayhem gauge. Starting from Mario 2 up until Mario 4, however, there will be hooks that will spawn from the top left or top right and travel across the map. These hooks will catch players and drag them away to the edge. If the Mario player got hooked, that player will not be able to make it into the portal and a raid wipe will happen. Just like before, the second Mario player should enter the portal and dispel the curse based on the respective color from the outside player. After a certain amount of time, the same stagger pattern will happen and the boss and the players will be teleported. At this time, instead of chainsaws, there will be hooks that will travel horizontally and diagonally. Avoid all these hooks, traverse to the left, and stagger the boss. After the Mario player exits the minigame and outside player finishes this pattern, the second Mario mechanic is finished and the encounter will resume. At 90 health bar, the boss will gain a buff that reduces damage taken by the boss. This boss will teleport to the center and will execute the Showtime pattern. You will need to avoid all these patterns, gunfire, and AoEs that is happening. The boss will periodically target his gunfire into one player and only that player for the whole duration of the mechanic. You will need to aim this specific AoE at certain direction at specific time. After a certain amount of time, a grenade will spawn and you will need that player to aim the boss gunfire into this grenade. Failing to do so will result in a raid wipe. After aiming into the first grenade, a second grenade will spawn on the other side, so be prepared to aim this gunfire again. During this part, you may use Sidereal Inanna to help protect you, lower your Mayhem gauge, and prevent damage from the knockbacks and gunfire. Avoid the rest of the AoE and there will be a few seconds before the final pattern of Showtime will happen. After a few seconds, 4 missiles will spawn from the center and follow each player. Stack and move together or spread out and avoid this missile. There will be AoEs that spawns and staggers you, so be careful with getting hit by this. Getting hit by the missile will instantly kill you. After avoiding all of this, the Showtime pattern is finished and the encounter will resume. At 80 health bar, the boss will execute the third Mario minigame by summoning the third portal. This is exactly the same as the other Mario, and the third Mario player should be prepared with approximately 50% Mayhem gauge. Avoid the hooks and enter the portal as Clown to execute the Mario 3 minigame. The third Mario player should enter the portal and dispel the curse based on the respective color from the outside player. This Mario specifically is arguably the hardest due to the bouncing ball at the start of the minigame. To give a tip for this Mario, jump twice back to back when the bouncing ball is at the highest point. After a certain amount of time, the same stagger pattern will happen and the boss and the players will be teleported. At Mario 3 however, chainsaws and hooks will happen together. Avoid these hooks and chainsaws, then stagger the boss. After the Mario player exits the minigame and the outside player finishes this pattern, the third Mario mechanic is finished and the encounter will resume. At 50 health bar, the boss will execute the fourth Mario minigame by summoning the fourth portal. This is exactly the same as the other Mario, and the fourth Mario player should be prepared with approximately 50% Mayhem gauge. Avoid the hook and enter the portal as a Clown to execute the Mario 4 minigame. The fourth Mario player should enter the portal and dispel the curse based on the respective color from the outside player. Fourth Mario is actually pretty simple, but has multiple routes like a maze. To give a tip for this Mario, recognize the color of the curse first. If you see two of these respective colored balls at the background behind, jump on the first platform. If you see less than two, keep moving and jump on the second platform. After a certain amount of time, the same stagger pattern will happen and the boss and the players will be teleported. There will be no chainsaws at Mario 4. Hooks, however, will still travel across the arena, but this time there will be two levers on the north and south side of the boss. You will need to avoid all of the hooks and approach this lever with one lever per person. Finish the typing mechanic, use the lever and stagger the boss. Failing to do this will kill the Iron Maiden player. After the Mario player exits the minigame and the outside player finishes this pattern, the third Mario mechanic is finished and the encounter will resume. At this point, this will be a burn phase from 50 health bar until the boss dies. The boss will keep doing their standard pattern until you kill him or he enrages and can wipe your raid. After you kill the boss, this phase will be done and you will be presented with a clear screen. However, Kakul has a unique clear interaction.
마음대로 끝을 내! 우여야! 성공! 우야! 진짜 시작은 지금부터라고!
There is an extra phase that is hidden at gate 3 called the bingo phase. There are no checkpoints at this point, so if you wipe, you will be back into the start of gate 3 again. The boss will also spawn again at 77 bar. This phase is actually very simple and straightforward. There is only one mechanic that repeats and there is no enrich timer. This phase is called bingo because of its similarity into in real life bingo game. At the start, the arena will be a 5x5 tile and two skulls will spawn randomly on the tiles. These skulls gives you Mayhem gauge and can stun you, in which you need to spam spacebar to dispel the stun. Avoid these skulls as much as you can. Periodically, a player will be targeted by a grenade and after a few seconds, the grenade will be dropped where the player were. This grenade will explode, flipping the tile and adjacent tiles from normal into skull or from skull into a normal tile. Be careful with the area denial and think ahead on where you should drop the grenade. Getting a horizontal, vertical or diagonal line of skulls will trigger the bingo. After you trigger the bingo, you will become immune to damage for 10 seconds. When a bingo occurs, the bingo line tiles will not be flippable anymore and it will become a permanent area denial. At one point, there will be no tiles for you to work with and you will die. Periodically, hammers will travel across the map and getting hit by this will instantly kill you. This hammer is indicated by the red arrows that will travel in a certain line of tile. Avoid all of the hammers and be careful as they sometimes line up with grenades, preventing you from dropping the grenade at specific areas. At every 3 grenades, the boss will teleport to the north side of the arena and will execute a raid wipe attack. This attack will kill everyone and also deal 13 bar of damage into the boss. You cannot avoid this, and to survive this, you need the immunity from the bingo. Alternatively, using Inanna can prevent you from dying as well. However, you will only get one usage of Sidereal, so only use this when necessary. This mechanic will repeat and a raid wipe attack will occur every 3 grenades. Focus on damage and executing the bingo mechanic until the boss dies. The boss will keep doing their standard patterns until you kill him or he enrages and can wipe your raid. This concludes the raid guide on Gate 3 of the Mayhem Legion raid. If you have any questions or comment, please let me know, and as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys on the next one.